Hey, what's up, guys? This is new territory for us. I think you guys know who I am, but my name is Lee Renfro, and I'm the student pastor at First Light Church. And in the midst of this pandemic going on, known as the COVID-19 or coronavirus, we're having to switch things up. And so instead of getting together live and in person at the hangar tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to try this online and see if we can't have some fun interacting and still growing in our relationship with Jesus as we dig into some scripture tonight. And so I'm excited. We're trying something different. And so I've never done this before, and we're gonna see how it goes. And so thanks for your flexibility. Hopefully we want our leaders to be engaging with you, talking with you, texting with you, and if your parents are around as well, having some dialogue and conversation. Because I think the stuff we're talking about this month, excuse me, that came out of nowhere. But the stuff we're talking about this month is in our series, Boy Meets Girl, we're talking about dating, right? And if you guys remember what we talked about the very first week when we kicked this thing off, we talked about how dating is for clarity, not for intimacy, right? That when we look at dating for a means to get love, affirmation, acceptance, we start making really bad decisions. And that can be bad decisions around who we choose to date. It could be bad decisions while we're in dating relationships. And I've made tons of mistakes in the midst of that. And so we want to try to help provide you some really good wisdom when it comes to dating. And that's why really seeing dating for clarity. And really what that means is when we talked about dating, we define dating as the process by which we try to find a spouse. You may be thinking, Lee, I'm not trying to find a spouse here. I'm just dating because all my friends are dating, because I like her, I like him, we like hanging out together. Why can't we just date? And I would say you can. I can't tell you what not to do. You are welcome to date. But what I'm going to try to hopefully share with you is that when we date for fun or we date for any other purpose rather than trying to find a spouse, is what we're end up doing is we're training ourselves for divorce rather than marriage. Because we're training us to make decisions about a person on how we feel about them in the moment. And when they stop making us feel good and when we stop having fun together, we just end the relationship. And while that can be well and good for you, but when it comes to something as important as marriage, the bringing together of one man and one woman for one lifetime, when we start seeing that whenever it stops being fun and happy and we end it, that's when we move into something called divorce. And that's not something any of us want to have. We don't want for you. And we know it's something that God doesn't want for us as well. That's why something as important as marriage, and when we look at dating to be the process of finding someone to spend your life with, it's really, really important. And so my encouragement to you is if you aren't looking for a spouse, I beg you, and my hope for you is that you would just pause and wait to date. I'm not saying never date. I'm just saying put the brakes on it a little bit and instead spend time having fun with your friends, right? Hanging out together, pursuing Jesus together, growing a relationship with God. And so that is our hope for you. And that's why when we see dating as something to find clarity around who is the person that God wants us to spend our lives with, dating helps us to start to see who that person can become, right? And last week we talked about the standards, and we looked at 1 Timothy 4:12, and we talked about kind of the five standards, if you would, that Paul lays out of what an exemplary Christian would look like, that they would be an example for other believers in their speech, in their conduct, in their love, in their faith, right? And God would use those things to help refine any follower of Jesus. And those couldn't be a better list when we could look at them for someone to date as well. And today we're going to start to look at, and tonight actually, because it's nighttime and not daytime. It is spring is almost here, and so that means that the sun is out a little bit longer, and so that's nice, right? You wake up and it's still dark. That can be good, but when you go to bed, or you start to go to bed, it can still be a little bit light out. So I have no idea why I chased that rabbit, but I think as Doug Hacker used to say, let's shoot the rabbit. Let's keep going. So when we talked about almost back at it. So tonight we're talking about when we should be looking for signs of when we need to break up. I don't know about you, but I've been on a lot of road trips, right? I've been in the car, and maybe you've been on a trip, and one of the nice things is we've got our phone or some sort of gadget to give us GPS and to help us to know how we're arriving at our destination, okay? And so if we think about dating, right, dating is the journey that we're on to this destination called marriage, right? And so if our destination is marriage, dating is that process. It's the journey. It's the route that we're taking to get to that destination. But here's something really, really important in any trip, any destination, any journey that you go on, right? It's following the signs along the way. So you know what markers you're hitting, and are you moving towards that ultimate destination that you are looking for. And here's the deal, is we have to start to look for the warning signs, or as I'm going to refer to them as our exit signs. These are indicators that this is maybe a relationship that we need to jump off, right? That we need to take the off ramp and we need to exit out of the destination, not out of the destination, that we need to exit off of out of the relationship in light of the destination that we are heading in. And so we're going to look at kind of 5 exit signs that we need to be aware of, that you need to be aware of. I don't necessarily need to be as much aware of because I'm married, and so I'm not really dating anymore. I've kind of nailed that one. So the first warning sign that we're going to see when it comes to a dating relationship is, this one is not going to be a surprise to you, but it's when one of you is not following Jesus, right? That's got to be the first warning that this is a relationship that you need to jump off of, right? And tonight we'll see that 2 Corinthians 6 tells us that we need to not be unequally yoked, or we do not need to team up with someone who is not a follower of Jesus. Not because they're not nice and kind and loving and all those kinds of things. Not that these people can't be your friends, but when it comes to something like dating, and if we're looking for a spouse, if we're looking someone to see, are we compatible with, if our eternal destinations don't line up, then we shouldn't be dating them, right? We should be sharing the gospel with them. We should be helping them come to know Jesus, right? And for some of you, maybe you're the Christian, but you're not walking with Jesus right now. You're not following after Jesus. You are pursuing something else other than Jesus, and you are in a relationship, and you are in darkness. You are covered. Your eyes are covered by sin, and therefore it's maybe fine for you to put pause and maybe to look at maybe exiting out of that relationship, because that is a warning sign. If one of you is not following Jesus, this is not a good indication that you are going to arrive at the destination that you want, a healthy, lifelong, thriving marriage. And so when one of you aren't following Jesus, that can be a really good indicator that this is a warning sign that you need to jump off and exit the relationship. The next warning sign that we'll see tonight is that we need to possibly exit is when one of you is not trusting of the other, right? Trust is a really, really important thing when it comes to a relationship. And when one of you is not trusting of the other person, conflict is inevitable. It's where things like jealousy show up, and jealousy ruins any type of relationship. Take it from me, I was the most jealous guy all throughout high school and in college. And so I would become so jealous and so possessive over my girlfriend that it was very much unhealthy, because I didn't trust her, because honestly, I didn't trust me, right? And if the person that you're dating cannot trust you, it is always asking you questions. Who are you with? What are you doing? Right? And starts to become very possessive, starts to become very, very jealous. That's a sign that this thing isn't going to last, because trust is a really important foundation when it comes to a relationship. And so when one of you can't trust the other person, that is another warning sign to say, hey, we may need to exit this relationship, okay? So when one of you aren't following Jesus, when one of you aren't trusting the other, the third warning sign is when one of you is not being relentless. If I could say that word. It's when one of you is not relentless about purity, that is a sign that you need to exit out of the relationship. We talked about this last week, right? About being an example in purity, and that when one of you aren't being relentless about purity, about making right decisions when it comes to your sexual decisions, whether that's if one of you is struggling with pornography, right? If one of you is struggling with maybe taking things a bit farther than they need to go when you guys are out and about, their hands are going in places that they shouldn't be going, right? That you can't just kiss, that you're actually moving into making out, that you're getting and putting yourselves in positions that are really forcing you and maybe encouraging you to compromise some of the things about yourself that you know that you don't want to do. Okay, if they are asking you to send them pictures of certain things about yourself, that is a clear indication that he does not care about you. He cares about himself, right? So you have to be relentless about your purity, and you got to make sure the other person is pursuing that in you as well, and they're relentless about their purity. So that's a really important thing. So if they cannot be relentless about their purity and your purity, that's a sign that the relationship needs to end. Okay, and that's a warning sign, right? The fourth one is when one of you is not supportive of the other. This is really, really important, right? This is one of those things that it starts to show up the longer that you're with somebody, right? Now, sometimes we look for people that are funny, that we have right compatibility in our interests, and that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, my wife and I, we don't always enjoy all the same stuff. Ask your parents. They don't always like the same kinds of things. There are different interests that we have. And here's what you've got to find. You've got to find somebody that doesn't just tolerate you, but they support you. Right? They're an encouragement to you, right? They encourage the things that you're a part of. If you're an athlete, they're supportive of the disciplines and the sacrifices that you've got to make to be a great athlete, right? If they're really into their school and they want to get good grades so they can get a scholarship into college, and you're always making fun of them because they're a study or a bookworm or whatever it may be, then they're not being supportive of you, right? If they're not supportive of your friends, if they're not supportive of you wanting to make sacrifices to spend time with Jesus, to go to church, to go on mission trips, to go to summer camp, whatever that may be, then that's got to be an indication that this is likely a relationship that I may need to jump off of, that I may need to exit because we're not supportive of each other. And that's a really important thing when it comes to any relationship. It's not just tolerating and saying, oh, that's okay, you can do that. But saying, no, that's awesome. I'm proud of you, right? Keep doing that, right? I love that about you. And what can I do to help you in that area, right? Someone who's being supportive goes the extra mile for you. And then the last kind of exit sign, warning sign, if you would, is if you're going along and at some point in the relationship, it becomes clear that this is not someone that you would want to marry. This is not someone that you would want to be your husband or that you would want to be your wife, or this isn't someone that you could see being a father to your kids or a mother to your kids. And then this has got to be an indicator that maybe we need to stop dating, right? And you say, Lee, I'm not thinking about marriage again. Again, I'm going to warn you, dating without that purpose of looking for a spouse, I promise you, is not going to end up well because you're constantly training yourself for breakups rather than a lifelong commitment there, right? But if you would say, hey, Lee, I'm not even thinking about being a dad or a mom or any of those kinds of things, and I get that. Dating, again, is for clarity. It's not for intimacy. But what you're gaining clarity on is this someone who's marriage material, right? And if that person isn't marriage material, then why are you dating them? You're dating them out of selfish motives so that you can get something from it rather than trying to gain someone you can pursue Christ together with. And so if you, at some point along this journey, it becomes clear that this is not somebody that I could see myself with, then end it. Then take that exit sign because that destination is so important and so worth it, right? So let me go over these 5 again, right? The first one is if one of you is not following Jesus, exit sign. All right, the second one is if one of you is not trusting of the other, exit sign, right? The third one, if one of you is not relentless about purity, it's time to exit, right? If one of you is not supportive of the other, it's time to exit. And lastly, if that person is not someone that you could see yourself marrying, then it is time to exit, right? And here's the reason why we say all of these things for you tonight is because you can't get to the right destination if you don't follow the signs. All right, you can't get to the right destination that dating is leading you towards if you don't follow the signs, right? Because the destination is important, but it's also really important to follow the exit sign so that you know when you're arriving at the place that you want to be, and that is a healthy, thriving marriage with someone that you could spend your life with, loving and pursuing, right? And dating helps us get to that goal. And until that time, until you're ready for that, and until you're in those kinds of relationships, continue to pursue Jesus with all of your heart so that you can be the kind of spouse, the kind of husband, the kind of wife, the kind of a boyfriend or girlfriend that God would want you to be, so that when God leads you through and leads you into relationships, right, as you look for clarity rather than intimacy, right, you can leave that person better than you found them, or that you guys can see how much that you're better together than you are apart. And this is something that's really helpful when you're having community around you, because I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to recognize these signs when I'm in the relationship, when I have the fog of that love, and when I have that crush on with someone, right, that it's really hard to see these kinds of signs. But that's why having people around you that can help point out, hey, that's a warning. So I don't think that person is very supportive of you, right? It seems like you guys don't really trust each other. You know what? I don't really see them really following after Jesus in a way that encourages you to do that, right? And so having people around you to help you do that's really, really important. All right, guys. Well, this has been a really good discussion. I really hope that as we're going to break now, hopefully you guys can dive into some small group questions here. If you go to the Bible app, that's a great place where I want us to dive in and to have these discussion questions, right? So if you go to the Bible app, under the events section, you should see our discussion questions for tonight. and to interact, text with your small group leader, maybe have a group chat going. And then also, if your parents are there, if your parents are watching, you guys can talk about this as well. All right, you can walk through those questions and talk through those together. We'll have the link in the notes here so that you can tap into that and hopefully have some good conversation there. And so I don't know how long we're going to be doing this, but at least probably for a couple weeks. But hopefully this is still enables you to continue to grow in your faith, because we really want to help you connect with Jesus and to connect with one another. And so as we're social distancing ourselves from one another in light of all that's happening here, we really want to help you to continue to run hard after Jesus, okay? And so thanks for watching this. Hopefully it's been really helpful for you, and excited to see how the conversations continue on. And hopefully this series has been really helpful for you. If it is, share it with somebody, invite somebody in, let somebody watch it, interact with it. And next week we're going to talk about how do you deal with heartbreak? Because if we're talking about exit signs, sometimes somebody may exit a relationship with you. And so how do we deal with those types of feelings? How do we process those kinds of things together? And so we want to help you be a part of that, because one of the sad things, again, about our culture is because we date for fun, we're training ourselves for divorce, for breakups, which inevitably means that there's going to be heartbreak along the way. And so we want to help you process that and talk through that together. So until then, have a great week, and we'll continue to push out some resources to help you to continue to run hard after Jesus, because we care about you. All right, thanks guys. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.